Steve Jewin for MMAmania.com. This World Series of Fighting interview with CEO Carlos Silva and President Ray Sefo was recorded on December 16, 2015. Friday night, December 18, 2015, the Chelsea at the Cosmopolitan. World Series of Fighting presents WSOF 26, Palmer vs. Almeida, with Lance Palmer defending the featherweight title against top contender Alexander de Almeida in the main event, live on NBC Sports. Without further ado, let's go to the interview with World Series of Fighting President Ray Sefo and World Series of Fighting CEO Carlos Silva talking about the year in World Series of Fighting and their plans for 2016. This is Steve Jewin, MMA Mania.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for taking the time today. I got in touch with Mike, and he said that you wanted to be on a call and do a little talking about the state of things in World Series of Fighting. And, of course, there's a big card coming up this Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Merch at Carlos, because he's not with us. We thought originally that he was going to be with us, but he's stuck at the office. So I was just going to just add him on to the call. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Yep, Carlos, are you there? I'm here. Okay. Oh, I thought I lost Steve, but we're all here.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Silva, thank you for being on the call as well.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to putting this article together for MMA Mania, and I know there's a lot of big things going on in World Series of Fighting right now, and first and foremost, the logo just changed, so maybe you can both tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the sort of overarching, MMA of the original, the original logo. I mean, MMA is such a big part of, the sports landscape now. As I joined here back in the, the beginning of the fall, August, September, I always felt like it overpowered this great brand called World Series of Fighting. So I really wanted to, get with the team, and as a team, we sort of worked through, working with some really great guys. We actually worked with this firm, Tom O'Grady, and they had done a number of, big time league and team logos, and we worked with them and we worked through that process. And I think, where we came out really represents the brand well with this, sort of shield around protecting that we think is great, and this, bit of regalness with the crown, that really kind of represents, what our champions are, when they become world champions. And so I'm super excited about it. I think it looks great, and we're looking forward to rolling it out. It'll take a little while, because like anything, when you roll out a new brand, you've got to, hit your website and everything that we're doing with our partners with NBC. But over the next 30, 45 days, you'll see it roll out across all of our media platforms.
Well, coincidentally, that was my next question I was going to ask Mr. Sefo, was if we would see the logo this Friday or if it would be in the new year.
Yeah, actually, I think I'll take that, because I'm not sure Ray knows that one. But you won't see it this Friday. It'll be the plan is to release it on the website at the very beginning of the year. And then our next fight is January 23rd, and you'll see it in the 2016 as the 2016 season starts.
Very good. So, actually, let's talk about that card, because we already know the card coming up for this Friday, so I'll direct this one to Mr. Sefo. Maybe you can take it. Who's all booked for the card in January?
Well, obviously our main event is Lance Palmer defending his world title against.
Right. That's Friday's card, but what about this card in January?
Oh,
yeah, we haven't released it, Ray, but if there's any little sneaks you can give Steve, happy to share.
Haven't really finalized certain things. There are certain things that we need to finalize, and we should have it finalized by the end of this week, Steve. So I can't really go too much into it right now.
Oh, sure. If there's an announcement during the broadcast, I'll be covering it anyway, so we'll look forward to that.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And, of course, if there's anything else, Mike will send out a press release, and I'll find out about it that way. But let's go back to this card Friday, Palmer versus Almeida. A great event, the Chelsea at the Cosmopolitan. I know it's going to be a big show.
Absolutely. I mean, Lance Palmer is, out of the three guys that actually captured the world title, is the first guy that have actually defended the title successfully. He turns out of alpha male. He has an amazing team out there. They have at least three 2 or 3 world champions in his camp, including himself. And then you look at the guy, the guy across the cage from him is Alexander Almeida from Brazil. And, he's an impressive story too, because when you look at him, his first 2 professional fights, he lost. And, some people don't really carry on fighting after you've lost your first 2 pro fights, and he did, and he continued to, after those 2 losses, he's won 25 straight fights. And so, it's quite impressive what he's done. And his first outing outside of Brazil is actually with WSOF fighting. And so I didn't expect him to come out and submit Sal Almeida that quick, because Sal Almeida has very good ground as well. And Alexander Almeida was able to put him away within 90 seconds in the first round. So I think this is going to be a real interesting match, because they both like to strike. One is obviously a black belt specialist in jiu-jitsu, and the other guy is an All-American wrestler. So, I think it's a battle of who really wants it the most.
It's a stack card top to bottom. I mean, we got a huge lightweight showdown, Ozzy Dagulov, Nick Heron-Webb, and Josh Hill and Bekpolat Magmadov, and Shaman Moraes moving up to featherweight to face problems Robbie Peralta. So, excellent NBC sports card.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, we continue to try and put the best fights on, the best card on for the fans and for the company, of course. And this Josh Hill and Magomedov fight, bantamweight fight, should be an interesting one, because the winner out of those 2 guys could possibly be facing Marlon Moraes, actually. So, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll see what the outcome of that fight is and see who looks the most impressive.
Right. And for Shaman Moraes, is this a permanent move up to featherweight, or will Shaman go back down to bantamweight after this fight?
I think he's going to stay at, again, fighters will fight at one weight, and then they'll move to another to kind of find out where they feel the strongest. Talking to his manager, apparently, he's starting to find it really hard to cut down to 135, and so featherweight is, it looks like it's where he probably will stay. He is a big guy, and he does, travel from time to time in terms of, fighting, and so, or training camps. And so I think he's gonna most likely stay at 145 for a while until such a time he can't fight there anymore.
All right, well, that sounds good. Now, I'm going to direct this next question to both of you, so I'll start with Mr. Silva, but if it's a question Mr. Sefo can answer, I'll let him go first instead. I just want to know, with the year 2015 drawing to an end now, and 2016 getting ready to start with a new logo, new, vision for MMA for the next year, what do you think of the year that's been? How do you encapsulate the year in World Series Fighting for 2015?
I think we've had a really good year. I mean, we've had a lot of changes. We've added some very positive changes, and obviously, of course, Carlos being on board as our CEO, and he's done an amazing job, not only helping the brand continue to grow, but also the insights of what we do with NBC, IMG, and a lot of little things that we've added to like post-fight stuff. So I think the whole year has been a very positive year, and we're looking forward to the 2016, because I think that's going to be probably one of our best years yet. And so, obviously the attitude is continue to challenge ourselves, and we've said this from the beginning, and we're going to continue to do that and continue to move forward.
All right, and Mr. Silva, I know you've only been CEO for a short time, but your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'd add that it's great to have joined kind of mid-year, sort of on the tail end of the year. The guys, I think, and the team did a great job with a couple of fights earlier in the year that got a lot of attention. Particularly Gaethje Palomino 1, which I think got followed up by Gaethje Palomino 2, which I think really created a lot of buzz around the excitement and sort of the great fighting at World Series of Fighting. I think as I've come in, I think we've shored up some production resources. I think I've tried to bring in some media to add to the great fight team that Ray and Keith, lead. And, I think we've really put a great foundation in place as we've gotten to the end of the year. And I think you'll see a little of that. I think too, Stephen, that we've got a show on NBC proper on December 27th, which is our best of 2015 show. And, I actually just came out of Stanford the last couple of days because that show was put together, for the network. And, the fight of the year, some of our international fighters, some of the great moments, I think it's going to be a great hour show. And I think we really put a great foundation to build a multi-platform media, fighting league here as we get into 2016. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, speaking of NBC, you did mention the great special, and I'm looking forward to that on the 27th. But what are the chances of having a card that would traditionally be on NBC Sports airing live on NBC in the new year?
I would say stay tuned for our 2016 announcements.
All right, that's another sneak peek that we can't get just yet. I understand, but
yeah, we can't release talk about everything in one interview, Steve. We got to save something for January. But the simple answer is I really think NBC also feels like the team has really, come together, especially as we've moved through the summer, some great fights and into the fall. And they're being a very supportive and good partner as we come out of this best of show on NBC on the 27th and really helping us with our 2016 plan. And I think we're going to release that soon along with the logo as we get through the holidays here. And it looks like a good 2016. I'm excited about it.
I want to ask you, Mr. Silva, I know you had a background in investment banking and senior vice president at places like AOL Time Warner before you came on board with World Series of Fighting. So how into MMA were you before you joined this brand?
Being in the sport, I've been in the sports, industry pretty much my whole career around technology, media. And, being a sports executive, you have to, sort of be on top of where the sports world's going. And, it's pretty easy when you start to list, the NFLs and the NBAs and the NHLs and the PGA Tour. I've been partners with all of them, from my AOL Time Warner days through to Universal Sports and the Olympics. As I was at AOL Time Warner, you go back to 2000, 2003, 2005, UFC was really still growing. And I actually did get an opportunity to learn a lot about sort of where MMA and the UFC really at that time, was going. So I've been in and around kind of the earlier days and the growth, tracking it as an executive and also, looking at potential investments in the space. So I did know it pretty well. The other side of it is, being in and around Olympic sports, at Universal Sports, we broadcast the World Championships for FISA, which is the Wrestling World Championships on a yearly basis, worldwide. We did a lot with Muay Thai. We did a lot with Judo. And so, kind of knowing all of those disciplines from my Universal Sports days, gives me a good background in all of those disciplines coming together, here. We've got a lot of NCAA champions. We've got a lot of world champions in some of those disciplines that, as you know, come to MMA and they start to put those chess pieces together to see how they become champions in MMA around what, their background and their foundation. So, I have been, although I haven't been in the sport proper, I've been in and around it for a while. And, I've got a couple of good experts at my side, the guys like Ray. So, it helps.
Just being around wrestlers and Muay Thai fighters, those are the backbone of the sport. The guys that become world champions is the guys that have a strong base, an Olympic level base in one of those sports. But you did mention UFC, so I have to ask. We know that's the 600-pound gorilla out there, and World Series of Fighting has done a great job of carving out a space, but that gorilla sits anywhere it wants to sit. So how does World Series of Fighting plan to continue to grow the brand with UFC out there as a competitor in Bellator MMA as well?
For me, it's a pretty simple answer. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, that they now know I'm, running World Series of Fighting have sent me a text from my sports and media background, around, the Ronda fight or the Conor fight or even a Bellator fight that's on Fight. And they always ask me, like, how does that work? Is that good or bad for you? I'm not, the simple answer for me, and this is sort of how I've approached growing all of my, sports properties, is if more people, more mass market know about MMA and know about, that these fighters are really great athletes and they're not just, fighters in a cage, the better it is for everybody. UFC obviously is leading the way and have had some huge events over the last couple of months between Ronda and Conor and the pay-per-view and everything. But, that gets more on Sports Center, that gets it more into sports, regular mainstream sports and marketing. And I think as a result, it helps all of MMA. And, I do think right now there's three main players. One's on Fox, one's on Viacom and Spike, and one's on NBC. And we happen to be one of those. And I think it helps us. I'm happy cheering along, for more, for my mom knowing about MMA because, the bigger, as you said, the bigger, 800-pound gorilla is helping it get, become part of our regular sports, lexicon and fabric of what we've got on sports other than, the ones that we all know. And I think that's the difference. And I would say that MMA is I don't know if it's the top 4 or the top 5, and how you classify them, but it's certainly at the top, with NASCAR, NHL, PGA, all of them. I mean, the numbers that are, if you aggregate all of MMA, they're big numbers, and it's a major sport. So I think it's great for World Series of Fighting.
So could we sum it up by saying that the rising tide will raise all ships?
I couldn't have, it was actually the next thing I was going to say, and the simple answer is absolutely.
Very good then. Now, Mr. Sefo, I'll direct this next question to you. We currently don't have a welterweight champion in World Series Fighting, and the last I heard, there was possibly a John Fitch versus Jake Shields fight to determine a new champion. Is that still the plan for 2016?
Yeah, that definitely still is the plan. Jake Shields versus John Fitch for the vacant welterweight title. And again, like Carlos says, we can't release everything in one interview.
That's fine.
But yes, you're on the right track, and you're absolutely right.
All right. Well, then we'll look forward to that at some point in 2016. And what is the current status of Husmar Palhares? Is he no longer with the promotion?
He is still with the promotion. He's still under contract to Wizards of Fighting. Right now, we stand by the commission ruling, which is he's been penalized for 2 years, I believe. Yes, it is 2 years. And when that suspension is over, then we'll look at talking to him about fighting again.
Do you think in that interim time, that 2-year period, do you think he'll see a sports psychologist or maybe get some evaluation of why it is that he continues to hold on to submissions longer than he should?
These are things that before we signed him, these are things that we were told that he was doing, and obviously he needs a little bit more of that. And so I think I don't really know the personal side of what they do, but I hope that that's what they're doing, because again, like I said, after the commission, you have to be, when you're starting jiu-jitsu, you start off as a white belt. To become a black belt, you obviously would meet certain people that, that will tap you, that will make you tap and submit. And so he truly understands that. And again, I'm not a psychologist and I can't really, comment too much on the issue. All I can say is that I hope he is talking to somebody, regardless of whether it's a psychologist or friends or coaches or whoever, somebody that can get through to him and can help him in that area of his game.
I agree. And hopefully in a couple years' time, when we see him come back, he'll be one of the contenders for whoever happens to be champion at that time.
Right, exactly.
All right.
That's right.
We've also got a little weight champion, which is something very rare in the sport these days, in David Branch. So, which title will he be defending first, if you can tell us that? Or if that's got to be a surprise for the new year, you can just tell me that. But since he's got both the light heavyweight and middleweight, go ahead.
I can tell you that.
All right.
Because, we have beat that sport. So, he is definitely going to win his middleweight title, 185 pounds. And we're looking in the early year for that. And so, just waiting on some confirmation of a few other things. And then, we should have some more stories on exactly when that's going to happen.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to updates on that. Now, I'll direct this next question to Mr. Silva. I want to know his thoughts on it's looking like a bright future for World Series fighting on NBC and NBC Sports, but are there any other platforms that could be carrying it that we don't even know about yet?
I think there's two. I think we've already started to push more in the international market with our partners at IMG. There's a number of deals that are actually being signed in a couple of new countries as we speak, and probably in the next 2 weeks we'll have those done. So that's one, because we do need to push out, our existing fights to other markets, because they're great fights with great international fighters too. We relaunched the website a couple of weeks ago. It's still in its infancy of a relaunch, but I guess, again, I think that foundation for what we're going to do on the website is now laid, and over the coming 30 days we'll start to grow it. And I think, with Karen Levy, who's our head of programming and production, she's already started to do more pre-fight shows. You're seeing a little bit of Ray and me and Chael and Boz and other guys in some of those digital offerings. And we're going to continue to do more of those, and we'll probably start to do some day-to-day of those. I'm a really big believer, Stephen, in what we've got to do to grow World Series of Fighting in between our fights. And so one of the biggest concentrations of 2015 will be the audience and how we continue to talk to the audience day in and day out for the 30 or so days in between all of our fights. And that's really I think that's a key to growing the World Series of Fighting brand.
Well, and one of the names you mentioned was somebody I wanted to hit on is Chael Sonnen, the American Gangster, because that was a landmark signing for World Series of Fighting for him to be a free agent out there in the marketplace and to come in and join the broadcast team. And one of the things I've noticed that you've done since he came in is pre-fight interviews with the fighters that roll out on the World Series of Fighting YouTube channel. So, Chael,
yes,
just a great acquisition, and talk about how you feel about him being on the team.
Oh, he's great. I mean, not only is he great to work with, he's definitely an icon. I actually spent a lot of time with him yesterday because we flew out together, and, he lives and breathes the sport. He's also got a great, he's just got a great way of talking to the audience. And, I even knew it before, he came to work with us. I would see him on ESPN, and I really thought he brought MMA to the audience in the same way that, ESPN's bringing the, NFL and the NHL and soccer and all the sports they bring in talking to that mass market audience of sport. And so I think Chael does that. We're super happy to have him on board, and I think you'll see more of things like we're doing online with him, because I think there's a great way to use his personality and his knowledge of the sport and combine those two to do a bunch of other digital offerings. So those are things that we're looking at.
And Mr. Sefo, your thoughts as well on Chael Sonnen?
I second everything Carlos just said. I actually was really impressed with Chael when he finally kind of spoke out and came out of the shell and just be himself, I guess. And I was able to, I had the opportunities to also spar him from time to time when he had camps here in Vegas. And so, when he was available and the discussions were about, looking for Chael to come on board was really exciting for myself personally, because I had, known Chael for a little bit and also know who he is. And again, he's a very intelligent guy, not only in the sport, but also in, just everything in general. And he's, very, very good in front of the camera. So, 100% very impressed, and also very, glad that we were able to have him as part of our team.
Absolutely, and the kind of attention that he gets with his style, personality, sometimes you could even say his loud mouth, it definitely brings an increased focus to World Series of Fighting, so you gotta love that.
That's good. We do love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the fights I remember saying to Taylor after a training session, I think it was, I said, you know what, I'm really impressed with, because not many people can talk and then come out and really put it on the line. You know what I mean? And Taylor's one of those guys. When he fought Anderson Silva, he really came out and he was very vocal about what he wanted to do and how he wanted to become champion. And then he came out and he put on such a dominant performance until he made a mistake in that fourth round, I believe it was. But I mean, he was winning that fight up to that point. And so for me, that was really impressive, for someone that's intelligent and also with that kind of, mentality to go out there and just, put it on the line. So it's, and I guess that's a fighter in me coming out. And for me, that's really impressive.
But gentlemen, I realize it's been about a half hour. You probably got a lot of things going on today, and I don't want to monopolize too much of your time. But Mr. Silva, I'll start with you for some closing remarks on World Series Fighting and the big card on Friday night.
I think the big card's two pieces. I think I'll leave it to my expert Ray on the great fight. That's in place. We're excited about it. Some great athletes are going to be out there. But we're really excited to be at the Cosmo. I mean, to your point earlier, Stephen, there was just a really amazing event, with some amazing attendance, with UFC over the last week. They were at Cosmo and then MGM, and we're just, we're really, honored to also be, following their footsteps and, going to Cosmo. We think it's a great venue, downtown. We think it's a great way to end the year, but maybe more importantly, kick off the new year. And so, I'm excited about it.
Chelsea at the Cosmopolitan has been a great venue for MMA in the past week, and it will be again on Friday night. So, Mr. Sefo, your closing thoughts.
Yes, again, I think what Paul said, and obviously to add on, what an amazing fight it is. When you have the likes of Josh Hill, who actually fought for the bantamweight title, and looking to make another statement to get into that number one spot, and then this new kid, Marcomedo, who comes from a Greco-Roman grappling background, and he likes to stand and bang and knock people out. So I think it's a real great matchup. Looking for that number one spot. Shannon Moraes, we've seen him, and he's a Muay Thai world champion that's 7-1 in mixed martial arts, and his outing was, his last outing was fighting for the title also, but now he's moved to 145. And he's fighting, a veteran named Robbie Peralta, and Robbie's been around for a while. Robbie's fought some of who's who in the game. Blake Reeder, Ron Jensen, and the list goes on. And then we go to our co-main event, Audrey Gulagov, who has been really impressive in his campaign as well. And his last fight, he was able to, I think he stopped the guy in Montoya in the second round with a spinning hook kick. And he comes from a wrestling background, so to see that, again, it just goes to show how much the game's evolved and how MMA is growing so much, not only in the sport itself, but also in the media world and around the world in terms of popularity. Nick Webb is a guy who brings a 18-6 fight record, so he's definitely a grappler himself. His last 14 fights, he's won by submission. So, I think it's, a wrestler versus a jiu-jitsu guy, but both guys can stand and bang, and so, makes it really interesting. And of course, our main event, Lance Palmer defending his, world title against, Alexander Almeida. And, the list goes on. We continue to, grow and continue to put on great fights. And make sure that everybody tunes in on NBC Sports Network Saturday night.
NBC Sports Network will be carrying the 4-fight main card, and WSOF.com for all the prelims that'll precede it, and it'll be a great event, the Chelsea at the Cosmopolitan. So be there live if you can, and if not, watch the TV and the WSOF.com broadcast. But Mr. Silva, Mr. Sefo, I want to thank you both for the time today, and I continue to look forward to World Series fighting in 2016 and beyond.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you.
You bet, and talk to you both later.